Hi everybody, it's Doug Sam DJ for NobodyMotivation.com. Today I'm blessed to have my cousin in the house, Sekai Trafford, and she's in the house to talk to you guys about possibly the most taboo subject, and that is sexual health. How then do you have that conversation with your young ones about sexual health? So first of all, Sekai, thank you for coming down.
No, thank you.
Brief introduction.
Okay. My name's Sekai Trafford. I am by background a sexual health nurse, specialised for 4 years in London. Worked with people, children from the age of 12 and above, going all the way to adults in their 90s.
Wow. In your career, what's been the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge for me is when working with people is just for them to feel comfortable, to be able to tell me their problems. So the biggest challenge is when the person comes in, just to make sure that they feel comfortable, just to make sure that they feel that there's no stigma in the room, and just to make sure that they are able to know that it's a safe space.
I remember never having that birds and the bees conversation with my parents. I had a conversation, but nothing that fully prepared me for what I would encounter as a young teenager. So do you have any advice to parents in terms of how then, or when is the most appropriate time to have that conversation about their sexual health?
I mean, all I can say as being a parent and then also kind of coming from the same background as you, my mum, my dad, we never had that conversation. It was mainly, if I remember, at primary school. I don't know if you remember, we watched some video and that was it. I have a 14-year-old child who I started introducing to the idea of sexual health. He knew I was a sexual health nurse. So I started introducing him to the idea of being informed about sexual health from the age of probably about 7. It wasn't just like Malachi, his name's Malachi. It wasn't about Malachi, this is what sex is. It was about Malachi, this is what your body parts are. Malachi, this is the difference between a man and a woman. And I think one time we actually went to one of the museums up in London and they had an exhibition on that.
In some cultures, it is known that you cannot talk about sexual health. What sort of advice would you have for parents who are trying to come to terms with maybe a child expressing alternative views or behaviours concerning their sexual activities? How would you support a parent throughout that process?
The thing with the black community is that we tend to turn to religious leaders. Yeah, so I had somebody once upon a time who had had an abortion and then her family found out, and it was like dealing with the fallout of her Pentecostal background, family coming hard on her, and then just her as a 15-year-old trying to understand what it meant by what she had done. The support I would give the family in that term, or what I did with that family, it was mainly about the young person. So it was about giving her the tools to understand what had happened about her body and making her feel empowered. The family, you could have a discussion with them, but then in terms of what my focus was, it was the young person, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to carry the burden of that decision.
Sure.
Yeah.
Talk about empowerment. It's a loaded word to empower somebody, particularly if they're coming from a background whereby they don't feel empowered.
Yeah.
So again, to the young person, how do you help that young person specifically? What specific things do you do to empower the young person?
Usually within the sexual health department, there are counsellors who you can turn the child to speak to. There is also programs which just enable them, teach them about sexual health and maybe how not to get themselves into that position again. We would also empower our young people by making sure they are on contraception, making sure they understand sexual health infections that can come if they continue having sex without using condoms. So it's about empowering them with all this knowledge and then also giving them guidance alongside the counselling to make sure that next time they're able to make a more holistic understanding of what they're doing.
Do you have more, in terms of your clinic that you run, do you have more men coming or young boys coming for treatment than girls, or what is it?
No, what I found was school would finish at 3 o'clock. We would have a lot of young boys, but then sometimes there would be a lot of young girls. So as soon as school's finished, from 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock, that was our young people's clinic, and it would be full. So both male and females are actually taking a good approach with their sexual health. They know to come and get tested each time they change partners or after every 6 months. So it was actually quite good to see them, and we would give them contraception.
Are they compliant with the medication? Do they take it, or do they take it just until they think they're getting better and then they stop taking the medication?
The great thing about if we're treating chlamydia, which was the highest infection that we would see in young people, chlamydia is tablets that they take there and there with us. The ones that we might have had a problem with were patients who were coming maybe with herpes, patients who might have had gonorrhea. Then what people are not understanding is that once you do have sex and you've taken the medication for the infection, if your partner has not been treated, what we would find was a lot of young people going back to those partners who were not treated, and thereby getting the chlamydia or the gonorrhea again to get reinfected.
So there's something there about responsibility for your own sexual health and the sexual health of your partner.
Yeah.
Do you think young people are fully aware of where the law comes into effect in terms of their responsibility to ensure that the other person is safe? Or is there something that law could be doing to help drive home that message further?
I think the problem, or I think the thing with young people is that they don't, because of their minds, they're still quite young and they're still formulating who they are. In terms of going to another person and saying, I have an STI and you need to go and get treatment, a lot of people might try and shy away from that. So as sexual health nurses, we also notify partners. So we have a service which we get the details of the partners and then call them to say, look, you. We don't say who it was who might have given us their names. But you say you need to come down to the clinic and come and get tested. Okay,
so is there a consent issue there that takes place?
Yes, there is a consent issue. So if the person doesn't want to reveal certain information, then that's where the trickiness of our job comes in.
What is the highest prevalence in terms of diseases that you can catch? What is out there that will leave you in shock? What should we try by all means to avoid? What do you tell young people to strap up because you're going to get this? What is it?
Okay.
Or is it a combination of things?
Yeah, it's quite difficult. So the chlamydia, which is the highest infection rate within young people, chlamydia, luckily the medication that we give is still curing chlamydia, so to say. Gonorrhea, there's a resistance, so we're on our last antibiotic for gonorrhea. So once that's done, then it's going to be quite difficult to cure gonorrhea from a young person or from anybody. HIV and syphilis, obviously we know about HIV being a stigma. It will always be in your system, but luckily we've got medication that allows you to live a long life now. So HIV doesn't cause death now. It's actually a chronic disease like diabetes. Syphilis we can treat. The one that I tended to find was causing a lot of problems were actually warts and herpes. So with the warts and herpes, that comes from friction, so skin to skin contact. So somebody might not actually have herpes showing on their lips or on their vaginal or penile area, but just the fact that they've got it in their system and it shreds, when you're having sex, you can transmit it to the other person, and the same thing with warts. So you might not know the sexual partner who gave you those, but you carry it.
We're talking about things that are very much hidden. Okay, so what does good sexual health look like?
Good sexual health looks like coming in getting tested.
Yeah.
So getting tested when you have a new partner, before you have sex with that new partner, both of you come in and get tested. Good sexual health looks like getting tested every 6 months anyway. Yeah. If you are with a partner long term, still come in and get tested.
Yeah.
Good sexual health looks like using condoms until you're sure that that partner is one who you want to actually, you feel comfortable after you've been tested to actually not use a condom. Good sexual health looks like being informed before you actually have sex. So if you as a young person don't feel you've got all the knowledge that you need, if you as a young person feel that you're only getting information from your friends, there's loads of other areas or loads of departments, loads of sexual health nurses like me in sexual health clinics, in schools. Sometimes they're on mobile buses in Croydon. That's where I live. So we're doing a lot of outreach to young people. So there's always someone who can give you knowledge. So what I would say is good sexual health is not just listening to your peers, but actually getting the information you need, discussing it with your parents if you are deciding to go and have sex. If it's not your parents because you don't feel you can, then somebody you trust, an adult you trust. But good sexual health is empowering yourself before you go down the line of having sex.
Wow, and that's supremely powerful. I know when I was a teenager, I didn't get that level of information. It's great that young people have a service they can go to whereby they can get empowered and get educated regarding their sexual health. Parents, just paraphrase, they can also get support around having these conversations.
Yes, indeed.
The last question is to do with the LGBTQ situation, whereby when is the right time do you think parents should have that conversation? Because we're living in a time whereby things are changing. Things that were not accepted before are now becoming more and more accepted, and children are coming back and asking questions.
Yeah.
So when do you think is the right time to have that conversation with your young one?
That's a loaded question right there. The problem with that question is that everybody's an individual in terms of how they want to approach introducing their children into sexual health identities or sexual identities. For me, my home was always quite open in terms of understanding the complexes of sexual identity. So with my son, we started having a conversation quite young. Some parents wouldn't feel comfortable with that. So what I would say to every parent is that it's important for you to do research, do some research on different sexual identities. Talk to your children. So if they are in the street and maybe they see a man and a man holding hands and they've got questions maybe when they're quite young, just start approaching it slowly, because like you say, Douglas, this is the world we're living in at the moment. We are developing, we're humans, and we are developing, and we need to be able to know that there are people out there who are struggling with their sexualities. There are people there who are living with two dads or two moms. You will be getting your children coming in and saying, Susan has got two moms, what does that mean? So it's about being open. Being open. Yeah. So for me, I can't really say, like I said, for me, I started having conversations with my son from when he was 7, but everybody's an individual. But just be open to that conversation, because it will come. Wow,
that was superb. And sexual health is everything. This is probably my most important video that I've collaborated with. And I'm so happy that you came to join us.
Thank you.
But all of this, as we say, means nothing if you don't apply and share it, okay? There's no point in you being sexually healthy and your partner is deviant of that. You have to be doing this in collaboration. Douglas Amadisha for Nobody Motivation.
Sekai Trafford.
We out. Download your free 140 Rule ebook from the 140rule.com website. The links are below.